So I now move on to the actual session, which is the overview on financial statement. Okay. Financial statement का क्या मतलब होता है? Okay, and why should the program folks know about financial statement? So we have actually done three sessions. Session one was on role of finance. Two was on our grant management, all aspect, right from understanding what is a grant to expecting what is a grant contract, and all the intermediate stages of budget, cost, sub coach, funds, fund accounting, all that we have seen. Now, is this all mentioned only relevant for finance folks? My understanding is that this is more relevant for program folks, because only then you will be delivering better programs. Now, at the end of the day, all these programs will have financial data, and it will all be compiled in the form of financial statements. Now, these financial statement is something like the report card that we are sharing with the outside world. Who shares the report card? Who meets the outside world? The program folks meet the outside world. So do the program people need to know what is financial reporting and what are the financial statements that are there, that report our financial position, our financial situation? How will the world come to know otherwise without you? The finance folks don't go and visit various stakeholders. We are the ones who visit various stakeholders. But do we know the state of financial health or the state of financial position of our organization? And is it not something that you should know? You should know, and it is not something very great. Now, but you will have to understand and remember the words that we have already seen. Okay, and we will see some more, and they are not very difficult. Now, why do you need financial reporting? Why? Because somebody has to understand whether this your financial reports, okay, uh, your financial statements, ये सच्ची बात कह भी रहे हैं या नहीं? Is it giving the true and fair view of your organization in line with the accounting principles? This is called the generally accepted accounting principles. Is it not relevant for you? It's very, very relevant for you, but you will not actually be doing the generally accepted accounting principles. What I'm trying to say is, why do you need financial reporting? Because your financial report, you can't go and say that my financial health is true and fair view. Somebody else will have to say that. But what does the financial report say? It says it gives a report card of the true and fair view. Just say up when you were a student, used to be a report card, and that report card gives a true and fair view of your performance in the class. Just like that, the financial statement gives a true and fair view of the state of financial position of your organization. But how will it give it? So there has to be a framework within which the true and fair view has to be given. That's called the generally accepted accounting principles, which are laid down by the Institute of Chartered Accountants. You don't have to get into the generally accepted accounting principles. You have to only know that मेरी financial report is based on certain policies and principles that are universally applicable. Then universally applicable ka matlab, then your report is becoming comparable with any other report. So any other organization is when an outside world person sees, will they be able to see your organization report similar to the other organization? Yes, because they have also followed the same policies and principles in making their report. Who decides that so the true and fair says what? Accurate. सच्ची बात है या नहीं? Accurate means correct. Complete means does it give the full story? Okay. Fair representation. Is it giving the fair view of your organization? That is what is the meaning of true and fair. Now, who gives that? As an external person. If you are Mr. X, will you come take your financial reports and give it to the outside world and say, I'm signing this and this is, as per my understanding, true and fair view? No. That is the difference between program reports. Program reports are generally your reports, although they should be audited by social auditors or social impact auditors just to give that. But financial reports don't work like this, because financial data in this country or financial statements in this country has to be certified by an external person. You might say anything. So whenever you go to a donor, the first thing is where is your audited financial statement or your financial report? That's why there's an external auditor who's recognized by the Institute of Chartered Accountants, which is the countrywide body looking after accounting. And that person is giving that true and fair view is there or not. Okay. Uh, Now, in not-for-profit organizations, there is a lot of problem in terms of, understanding uniform application, understanding the meaning of words, and therefore these reports are not consistent. They are not comparable. But there is work being done by the government in terms of ensuring that the structure or the financial reporting structure for not-for-profit is also something like for the for-profit. And that is one big problem for the not-for-profit sector in terms of true and fair view. So when there is always this kind of a question mark on true and fair view of the financial reports of not-for-profit. Do we question the true and fair view of for-profit organizations? Generally not. If you get a audited financial report of Hindustan Lever or Colgate Palmolive, do you question that? No, because there is an assumption that the principles have been actually applied, and that has not been applied by our sector, actually questions the true and fair view. But I'm not getting into that debate. What I'm only trying to explain is that that is a problem that is there, which is getting fixed. So the need for financial reporting framework is to ensure that there is completeness, accuracy, consistency in our financial report. Our financial reporting framework क्या है वो देखने वाली बात है. Okay. So what are the components of a financial of a financial framework, the accounting framework? There are three things. One is, what are the elements of a financial statement? सबसे important is to know what is the element of a financial statement. There are four items that make the elements of financial statement: the income, the expenditure, the assets, and liabilities. Okay, that is what are the. So when you talk about a financial statement, what will get represented in the financial statement is four elements, चार parts, चार चीजें: income, expenditure, and then you'll have parts of income, you'll have part of expenditure, you'll have part of assets, you'll have part of liabilities. But they are the basic elements of a financial statement. It says when though now if there are four elements that we have seen, okay, when will they be captured in the financial statement? That is the timing. How much will be captured? That is the measurement of those four statements. And how will these four things be presented? Okay. uh, and how they have been calculated, what are the policies and principles? Because we had seen generally accepted accounting principles. You will have to follow the generally accepted accounting principle for computing these four items of income, expenditure, asset, and liability. Number one, that is the policy. And then you will have to present it in a certain fashion, these four items. That is what I'm trying to explain. So the framework for a financial report has two, three, four parts. One is what will constitute financial statement. We have seen four things. Now those four things, when will they be captured? How much will be captured? How they will be presented in the report, and on the basis of which policies they will be actually calculated, is what this framework is. Now, before we go to some of the to प्रेजेंटेशन, और मैं आपको फिर इसके बाद प्रेजेंटेशन में ले जाऊंगा, मींस ये इनकम, एक्सपेंडिचर, एसेट और लाइबिलिटी कैसे प्रेजेंट होता है एक फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट के अंदर, that is what we are going to see. So you have to right now remember that there are four elements of a financial statement. But before we see the four elements of the financial statement, some terms we will have to see. Okay, just for your understanding. Basically, I'm not teaching you accounting, but the terms are important because that will help you in understanding income, expenditure, asset, liability better. ये तो मैंने आपको चार बात बता दी. इनकम मतलब आय, एक्सपेंडिचर व्यय, असेट मतलब संपत्ति, और देनदारी या दायित्व is your liability. Now each of these things, how they will be recorded, how much they will be recorded, when they will be recorded, एंड वेयर दे विल बी रिकॉर्डेड, दैट इज वेयर, मतलब कहाँ प्रेजेंट होंगी, कहाँ उसका प्रेजेंटेशन है, वो सब चीज के अंदर कंसिस्टेंसी है, बिकॉज वी हैव सीन दैट देयर इज अ फाइनेंशियल रिपोर्टिंग फ्रेमवर्क. बट बिफोर दैट लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड सम वेरी इजी वे व्हाट आर सम वर्ड्स. अकाउंटिंग ट्रांजैक्शन का मतलब होता है जैसे ही आपने कुछ पैसा खर्च करा अपने प्रोजेक्ट के ऊपर, there is a monetary implication, and that is what needs to get recorded in the account books. That is what is called as an accounting transaction. Very easy. But who is creating this accounting transaction? Not the finance person. It is you who is creating this accounting transaction because you have spent the money. What is the accounting fellow doing? This money that got spent, he is recording. Why? Because at some point of time we will have to do the budget monitoring. We will have to do the reporting. We will have to do the discussion with the donors. We will have to make the financial statements. तो सबके लिए तो कहीं ना कहीं अकाउंटिंग ट्रांजैक्शन को रिकॉर्ड करना होगा, लेकिन अकाउंटिंग ट्रांजैक्शन का सोर्स कौन है? प्रोग्राम पर्सन. सेल्स परचेज दैट यू डू एवरी डे, खरीदारी और बेचान, that is not something that we do as organizations. Okay, not for profit organizations don't do sales. Very few do. I am not getting into that, but we don't do sales. We do grant implementation. But do we purchase? Yes, we purchase a lot of things, and next session we will do purchases only, or procurement as it is called. Then what is called as in uh, receipt and payment. When you make sales you get receipt, and when you make purchases you have to make payment. Okay, now receipt means praptiya, that is you have got the money. Payment means bhuktan, that is you have made the payment. Now there in this slide जो चीज समझने की है, that is जब आपने सेल किया तो जब ही आपको रिसीट हो गया? नहीं, बिकॉज देर इज अ टाइम गैप बिटवीन सेल्स दैट आर मेड एंड द मनी दैट कम्स इन योर बैंक. ओके, बट सेल्स में आपने इनकम अर्न कर ली, बट यू हैव नॉट रिसीव्ड द इनकम. Similarly, when you purchase, you have incurred a liability to pay, but have you paid? No, because there's a time gap between purchase and payment. नाउ दैट, अगर आपने जैसे ही परचेज करा और वहीं पेमेंट कर दिया, दैट इज द कैश बेसिस ऑफ अकाउंटिंग. लेकिन जब आपने परचेज किया और आपने कहा मेरे को आपको 7 डेज का ग्रेस पीरियड देना पड़ेगा, ओके, क्रेडिट पीरियड देना पड़ेगा, देन दैट इज कॉल्ड अक्रूवल बेसिस ऑफ अकाउंटिंग. ठीक है, दैट इज व्हाट आई एम सेइंग. सो देयर इज अ गैप बिटवीन द सेल एंड रिसीट. There's a gap in time between purchase and payment. That is what is called the cash and the accrual basis of accounting. सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट अगर अकाउंटिंग के अंदर कोई प्रिंसिपल है तो वो कैश बेसिस है. जैसे ही हमने अ, खरीदा और पे कर दिया, दैट इज कैश मेथड. ओके, व्हेन कैश इज रिसीव्ड, जैसे ही आपको कैश मिला, आपने कुछ सामान बेचा, आपको कैश मिल गया, दैट इज कैश मेथड. जैसे ही आपने कुछ खरीदा और बेच और आपने पेमेंट कर दिया, दैट इज कैश. When you have earned, that is accrual, that is you have made the sale but you have not received the money. So the best method of accounting is accrual basis of accounting. What, as you have made the purchases, you have incurred the liability to pay but you have not paid. So accrual method of accounting जो होती है, that is the accounting method that is followed by organizations, even your organization. मतलब हमें हमारा इनकम को जब हम अर्न कर लें, सपोज अ ग्रांटर हैज सेड आई हैव रिलीज 1 lakh rupees to you. Will we recognize it? Yes, we will recognize it. But when we are making up purchases and we are saying we are going to actually, the invoice has come but we have not paid, will you account for that in your book? Yes, because we have to now pay. Accrue मतलब accrue हो गया, due ड्यू हो गया, पे नहीं हुआ, रिसीव नहीं हुआ, लेकिन ड्यू हो गया. प्राप्त करना ड्यू हो गया और भुगतान करना ड्यू हो गया. दैट इज व्हाट इज द एक्रूअल मेथड. एंड नाउ यू विल अंडरस्टैंड sales, receipt, purchase, payment. That is what will give you an understanding of cash method and accrual method. Now the golden method for accounting is the accrual method. Now I come, so I'm not devoting more time on that. हमने देखा था कि चार एलिमेंट्स हमारे फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट के अंदर होते हैं. इनकम, so from for grant, for NGOs the sales is not, the sales is नहीं है, यहाँ इसको रिप्लेस कर दीजिए ग्रांट से। ओके, परचेजेस तो एक्सपेंडिचर है ही। ओके, रिसीट इज ग्रांट रिसीट एंड पेमेंट इज एक्सपेंडिचर पेमेंट। बट वो असेट और लाइबिलिटी कैसे हो रहा है? बिकॉज हम जब भी कुछ इनकम करते हैं या पेमेंट करते हैं, ये परचेजेस करते हैं, तो हमारा या तो उससे कुछ असेट, तो हमारी कोई असेट क्रिएट होती है जिसको हम अपना यू नो असेट मानते हैं, और कुछ लाइबिलिटी होती है जिसको कि हमको पे करना है, संपत्ति जिसको बोलते हैं एसेट। नाउ आई कम टू द डेफिनेशन ऑफ एसेट्स, लाइबिलिटीज एंड इनकम एक्सपेंडिचर। रेवेन्यू एंड एक्सपेंसेस तो हमने देख लिया, रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंसेस हमने देखा। रेवेन्यू हमारे लिए है हमारी इनकम, और एक्सपेंडिचर हमारा एक्सपेंडिचर। नाउ सारा एक्सपेंडिचर जब हमने देखा था ना, कैपिटल कॉस्ट एंड रेवेन्यू कॉस्ट। Now I'm talking about cost, revenue cost. So revenue cost means you have spent the money and it is gone. But some cost we had seen as capital cost. So the capital cost means you have incurred that cost, but that cost will not go away because you have purchased a capital good that will have value for more than 1 year. That is what we had seen as the capital cost. तो एक्सपेंडिचर के अंदर रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर और कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर होता है, और कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर जो हमने किया है वो हमारा असेट है, जो कि आपको ऊपर लेफ्ट हैंड साइड में दिख रहा है। ओके, दैट कैन बी फिक्स्ड एसेट्स। When we had liability in terms of corpus, that money is to be invested in investment. We have current assets, which is cash, or inventory, any inventory that we have which can be sold. All that is asset. Asset means it is what we own, OWN। ये हमारी संपत्ति है, ये हमारे पास है, ये हमारा स्ट्रेंथ है। लायबिलिटी मतलब ये स्ट्रेंथ तो है, बट इसके अगेंस्ट में हमारी लायबिलिटीज हैं जिनको हमको डिस्चार्ज करना है। So the asset and liability will be forming part of one of the statement which is called the balance sheet। बैलेंस शीट का मतलब क्या होता है? हमारे वो शीट जिसमें असेट और लायबिलिटी को बैलेंस करके देखा जा रहा है, क्योंकि ये सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट है। हम ऐसा काम तो नहीं कर रहे दैट वेयर द where my liability is more than my assets. Generally, my assets should be equal to my liabilities in a not-for-profit, or at least my assets should be more than my liability, which we had seen as the concept of net worth, which also is called as equity or capital in a for-profit organization. Not-for-profit organization में इसको reserves या surplus बोलते हैं, which has to be used for the organization, not to be distributed to shareholders or the founders. That's the difference between for profit and not for profit. Please understand this. So in these three things that you are seeing on the top are, 1 minute. These three things that you are seeing on the top are part of the one balance financial statement which is called balance sheet। ठीक है? हमने क्या देखा था? हमने अकाउंटिंग ट्रांजैक्शन होते हुए देखा था। वो अकाउंटिंग ट्रांजैक्शन सेल का हो सकता है, परचेज का हो सकता है, पेमेंट का हो सकता है, रसीद रिसीट का हो सकता है। And those transactions can be on cash basis or accrual basis, meaning actual payment or receipt, or due basis pay, any payments that have to be made, or due basis pay, any money to be received. Now, we are generally saying that whenever we have to make any payment because we have incurred a expenditure or liability, is when we should recognize it, because वो पैसे तो देने ही है। Similarly, वो पैसे तो आने ही है, इसलिए we have got an assurance that the money is coming, we have to recognize it. So we have recognized the income and expenditure that is based on the grant coming and the expenditure making. The expenditure is of two types. So the expenditure which is revenue, that which will get consumed after the activity has happened, like program supply, like HR cost, like office cost, your like travel, वो तो सब कंज्यूम हो जाने वाला है जैसी एक्सपेंडिचर एक्टिविटी खत्म हुआ, द एक्सपेंसेस इज डन। बट सम एक्सपेंडिचर आर इन द नेचर ऑफ कैपिटल कॉस्ट, है ना? तो वो कैपिटल कॉस्ट जो है वो आपका असेट साइड में जाए, लेकिन उस कैपिटल कॉस्ट को करने के लिए आपने कुछ ना कुछ लाइबिलिटीज भी है, which means that for instance if we got corpus money, as we had seen one of the types of funds, that corpus money is a liability. Okay, so we will show that as a liability, we will show corpus as a liability, which I had already told you, हमने बैलेंस शीट में भी देखा था। अब वो लाइबिलिटी तो है, सो वी गॉट 100 rupees as corpus as a liability, and we are showing that as a liability because it does not belong to us. The income belongs to us, and that will be down below in the income side recognized, and on the right hand side, the brown box, it will be, if it is consumed, then it will be expense. If it is not consumed, then it will go to सबसे ऊपर में right hand side, that is your surplus. Okay, that is what it is. So understand this like this. Now कॉर्पस अगर हमको मिला लाइबिलिटी 100 रुपीज का, तो हमारा 100 रुपीज कहाँ पे जाएगा? पॉइंट नंबर 2, दैट इज वी विल मेक इन्वेस्टमेंट ऑफ दैट कॉर्पस, देन ओनली इट विल जनरेट इनकम ना. सो corresponding 100 rupees you will find in investment only. That is how the asset and liabilities will balance. And whatever is the difference between asset and liability is your net asset. Now, generally, you must have a situation of net asset, and the donors will always like to see that you have net asset. It should not be that your liabilities are more than your asset, which means you have a stress in your financial statements. मैंने आपको बहुत सिंपल तरीके से ये चार चीजें, पांच चीजें बताई हैं. अब ये पांच चीजें जो हैं, जो 5 boxes that you are seeing here, asset, liability, net asset, that is your surplus. The difference between asset and liability is your net asset. It can be positive or negative. Their income and expenditure, the difference will be surplus. Okay. Generally, you will not spend more than your income, but you can have a situation where you got income which you did not spend, or you got corpus income, interest on corpus as income, which you did not spend, which will be a surplus. So that is something that you'll have to understand. Now, what are the four financial system के? So what is the what is a financial statement? Basically, a financial statement is top level summary level report, top level report of the financial results or position of your organization, of the cash flows of our organization. What does it include? It includes A, B, C, D. Okay. uh what is it? One, balance sheet. Balance sheet पे क्या? Balance sheet at the end of the financial year. क्या चीज है? ऊपर के 3 boxes, the blue, the yellow and the light blue. This is what is the balance sheet as at a particular date, as at a particular date. Okay. So this is what these three things are getting reflected on your balance sheet. Balance sheet मतलब मैं क्या तो मेरे पास है, क्या मुझे मेरा दायित्व है, और उसके बाद मेरे पास कुछ सरप्लस है या नहीं. That is what this balance sheet shows. The income and expenditure shows during the period, during one financial year, what was the income that I got and what was the expenditure. It is for a period, not at a particular point of time, during a particular period of time. Understood? Third one is receipt and payment, which is also called as the cash flow. Now, the receipt and payment and income and expenditure are the two statements which will give you the difference between the cash system and the accrual system. Income and expenditure accrual basis पे आपको financial position बताता है, और रिसीट एंड पेमेंट या कैश फ्लो आपको क्या बताता है? कितना कैश आया और कितना कैश गया. मींस प्राप्तियां कितनी हुई और कितना भुगतान हुआ. That is what the cash flow says. Now, this cash flow helps you to understand whether there is enough cash in your organization in terms of receipt and payment, which may not be reflected in your income and expenditure. Lekin income and expenditure gives you the full story. So the two statements that are most important for an organization in terms of financial statement, ये आप नहीं बना रहे हैं, ये कौन बना रहा है? आपके अकाउंटेंट्स बना रहे हैं. और ये अकाउंटेंट्स बना के समराइज करते हैं, सब कुछ करते हैं, सारे अकाउंटिंग प्रिंसिपल्स के बेसिस पे इन डेटा को बनाते हैं. These are at the summary level, at the top level. This top level report is what you have to know, because you will have to carry and tell the world about your financial position and health. Okay, the point is your accounting policies for preparing. So we had talked about the generally accounting policies. Okay, generally accounting, the GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. So you will have to disclose what are the policies and principles that you applied in coming to these, in making these numbers, in arriving at the numbers that you are reflecting in your balance sheet and your income and expenditure statement. And on top of it, there will be the auditor's report, which is an independent practitioner's report saying हमने इन सारी रिपोर्ट्स को देख लिया है, किनको, बैलेंस शीट को and income and expenditure को generally. Okay, we have gone through the balance sheet and income and expenditure statement of XYZ organization, and in our opinion, this gives a true and fair view of the financial position of this organization. Only then it will be believed by the outside world. Not without the auditor's report you are going to the world and saying ye meri report hai, without the auditor signing off, this is not going to be believed by external stakeholders. Okay, आप प्रोग्राम रिपोर्ट ले जाके अपनी बात कह सकते हैं इवन दो इट्स नॉट ऑडिटेड, बट फाइनेंशियल रिपोर्ट्स की वैलिडिटी या उनकी वर्थ जब ही होती है when they have been certified by an external person who's called the auditor or the statutory auditor, who is recognized by law to give that kind of an opinion. So this is what is called as financial state. Okay, now मैंने आपको बता दिया बैलेंस शीट क्या बताता है, असेट्स एंड लायबिलिटीज। इनकम एंड एक्सपेंडिचर क्या बताता है, income earned, not received, income earned, and expenditure incurred, not paid. But when the income received and expenditure paid, then it becomes a receipt and payment statement. That is the difference between income and expenditure. So when you have FCRA registration, you will find that you are making two audited financial statements, one for FCRA and one including the FCRA, the consolidated financial reports. They are called conso reports, consolidated financial report. कुछ बहुत डिफिकल्ट लगा, कुछ बहुत डिफिकल्ट नहीं है। हमें क्या दिखाता है और कहाँ जा रहा है आपका एक्सपेंडिचर, आज शाम, कल कल आप काम करने जाए, आज आप काम करने जाएंगे या कल काम करने जो गए थे उसका एक्सपेंडिचर हुआ था, वो कहाँ दिख रहा है, एक्सपेंडिचर में। दैट एक्सपेंडिचर was incurred, so the moment it will go to your accountant, he will bring it in the income and expenditure statement. तो आपका हर कार्य हर रोज किया हुआ कहाँ फाइनली समराइज होता है, I&E में। आपके सारे पैसे कहाँ हैं, सारे व्हाट आर द एसेट्स दैट यू ओन, वेयर इज द लैपटॉप दैट यू आर यूजिंग राइट नाउ फॉर दिस, इट इज पार्ट ऑफ योर एसेट्स। इज इट वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू अंडरस्टैंड? नो। एंड where it has been paid from an expenditure or from the fixed asset schedule that will be there in your balance sheet. So everything is so simple in that sense, but we have to understand हमारा किया हुआ single काम in the field wherever we are is actually affecting our top level financial statements, and where it is reflecting, you should be able to understand that. I am not saying go and understand how the numbers have come, but at least understand the top level. So the difference between IND statement and RNP statement, as they are called, is the accrual and cash method of recognition. आरएनपी इज बेस्ड ऑन कैश मेथड ऑफ रिकग्निशन, कितना कैश प्राप्त हुआ और कितना कैश का भुगतान हुआ, कितना कैश हमें ड्यू हुआ, अर्न हुआ, हम हमारे को ग्रांट सैंक्शन हो गई तो हमने अर्न कर ली, तो और ग्रांट इन एक्सपेंडिचर हमने कर दिया बट पे नहीं किया, तो दैट इज समथिंग दैट इज आवर लाइबिलिटी। ओके, दैट इज समथिंग दैट वी हैव इनकर्ड, okay, we have accrued. That is what is the accrual basis. So the income and expenditure statement will be on accrual basis and the RNP will be on the cash basis. So that is the financial statement basically. आपको ये तीन financial, even RNP is not that important. What speaks of the financial position of your organization are two statements, balance sheet and INE. बैलेंस शीट आपकी फाइनेंशियल हेल्थ को दिखाता है और इनकम एंड एक्सपेंडिचर आपकी फाइनेंशियल परफॉर्मेंस को दर्शाता है, आपने क्या परफॉर्म किया। तो आप देखोगे कि एवरीवन सिटिंग हियर हैज कंट्रीब्यूटेड बोथ टू द फाइनेंशियल पोजीशन एंड टू द फाइनेंशियल परफॉर्मेंस, एंड वी शुड बी द एम्बेसडर्स ऑफ नरेटिंग दैट पर्टिकुलर थिंग टू द आउटसाइड वर्ल्ड। तो हमें क्या जानकारी होना जरूरी है या नहीं है इन स्टेटमेंट्स का? Yes, we should know each of these statements fairly clearly. All right, this is what it is. Now, key points in preparing financial statement. So basis of accounting मैंने आपको बताया था, accrual system and of accounting and cash basis of accounting. Normally these reports are prepared annually for a period of 1 year. एक साल में एक बार बनती है और एक साल के लिए बनती है। बैलेंस शीट एक साल के अंदर पिछले साल की डेट 31 मार्च को क्या पोजीशन थी हमारी, और 31 मार्च इस साल को क्या पोजीशन है। लेकिन दो दोनों डेट्स के बीच में एक साल का फासला, देर इज अ गैप ऑफ 1 year, बट वी आर रिपोर्टिंग आवर फाइनेंशियल पोजीशन, we are reporting our financial position as on a date. Balance sheet will give your financial position as on a date, not during a period. But our financial performance through income and expenditure statement is for a period of time. For a period of time. Okay. Uh, what does it contain? So we have to be very clear that we it should contain standard information. Okay, फॉर वेरियस स्टेक होल्डर्स कौन होंगे, डोनर्स होंगे, गवर्नमेंट होगी, कम्युनिटी होगी, पीपल हु आर इंटरेस्टेड इन योर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन होंगे, दे आर ऑल पीपल हु आर स्टेक होल्डर्स. You are an internal stakeholder. As a stakeholder, you are an internal stakeholders, but the external stakeholders are these people. Okay, people who might just want to understand your organization, they are stakeholders. Even somebody who wants to your vendor can be a stakeholder. Okay, who wants to who's from whom you are purchasing, they are a stakeholder. So all of these stakeholders should be able to read that financial statements same way. ये नहीं कि डोनर तो किसी और तरह से समझ रहा है उस स्टेटमेंट को और गवर्नमेंट किसी और तरह के समझ रही है, because it will contain standard information based on application of generally accepted accounting principle. That standard information will be commonly uniformly understood, and that should be the key point: accuracy, consistency, and common or shared understanding of those states. Okay, now please remember the financial statements are different from donor reporting या government compliances. डोनर रिपोर्टिंग मतलब डोनर को तो आप यूटिलाइजेशन सर्टिफिकेट देते हो आपके प्रोग्राम का. This is not what financial statements are. Financial statements are for all donors and everything put together. That is financial statement. Donor reporting can be only your program report or your financial report or your audited financial utilization certificate for that project. And that will become part of the overall financial statement. So the donor reporting is just one piece of the financial reporting or the financial statement. Similarly, government को compliance करते हैं आप various types of reports that you give to income tax, to FCRA. That is not financial statement. Financial state. So you will give this compliance reports by taking out something from the financial statements, but all source that is going, everything is finally resting at even in the financial statements is what I'm saying. But there you must understand the difference between financial statements and other reportings that you make to the other shareholders or stakeholders that I'm talking. Uh, the financial statement should reflect restricted and unrestricted funds separately. Unrestricted funds, no restriction on time, no restriction on purpose. Restricted by time by purpose. Okay, you remember types of funds जब हमने देखे थे, कोई नहीं बताएगा टाइप्स ऑफ फंड्स. अनरेस्ट्रिक्टेड फंड्स कहाँ थे, कॉर्पस था, आवर ओन सरप्लस था, जनरल फंड था, दैट इज ऑल. प्रोग्राम फंड्स वर ऑल restricted, and I had told you the program funds are restricted till the time they are not utilized. Once they are utilized, to that extent they become income, and to the extent that they are unutilized, they are still a liability. So you should be able to show the restricted and unrestricted. Why are we talking of restricted and unrestricted funds? Because our bread and butter is donor funds as far as NGOs are concerned. And every donor, every stakeholder is finally looking at these funds. Now, बाकी सब कुछ secondary है. What did you do with that fund, whether you made program expenditure which is reflected in income and expenditure statement, or whether you purchased an asset which is reflected in your balance sheet. Because balance sheet में वही चीज दिखाएंगे जो आपके पास आज के दिन है. जो चीज नहीं है वो आपकी खर्च हो गई इनकम एंड एक्सपेंडिचर में, नॉट प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस. Because we are not in the business of profit and loss, we are in the business of income, we are business of expenditure, and we are in the business of some surplus which then also has to be spent on the objectives of the organization, cannot be distributed to the founders or to the promoters of that organization. That's what the difference is between for profit and not for profit. Please understand that clearly. Okay, now there is For a Section 8 company, there is the Schedule 3 and the Companies Act, which actually lays down the format. But for societies and trusts, there is no such format. There is work happening on that. And that is why the presentation sometimes is very, very difficult. The use of the words in terms of explaining what that expenditure or income or asset is also something very different, which is not the case for profit. So that to that extent, that confusion is still there, but that is being rectified slowly, slowly. So these are some points that have to be understood. Now, coming to two words that you must know. Okay, when we were talking about balance sheet and income and expenditure, we are talking of receipt and payment, we are talking of accounting policies. We were talking of accounting policies. कौन बनाता है accounting policies? Institute of Chartered Accountant बनाता है. कौन follow करता है accounting policies? हम follow करते हैं. Accounting policies के basis पे end result क्या होता है? That our data is based on that policy framework. Okay, that policy framework is what is actually helping us to make that data. The policy we are talking about accounting policies. The policy framework will policies will ensure that our data is consistent in terms of comparison between others, and it is following that particular generally accepted accounting policies. Who verifies all this? The auditors verify all this कि ये data generally account accepted accounting principles के basis पे, ये income के element के recognition पे, ये expenditure के basis पे. The MRL and the ML are two words that you must also understand, because आप लोग भी audit के दौरान audit के process का part होते हैं. And we have a session on audit and assurance, yeah? And I'll explain to you what is your role in audit. Okay, so you're not away from all this finance business in a certain sense. अगर आप away रहना चाहते हैं, that's your choice, but that doesn't actually help you become a good general management practitioner. At the end of the day, in organizations, the top leadership is comprising of people who understand both program and finance. Okay, let us understand this. And to think that I want to be just a programmer doesn't allow you to go to the top level in any organization for that matter, whether be it profit or not for profit. Now, the auditors are the people who will see all this data as on at the end of a period to give their opinion on true and fair view. TFV is what we had seen. Now, MRL and ML is part of the audit process. MRL means management representation letter. This says that जब हम auditor को ये सारा data देते हैं audit करने के लिए, so that the financial statements can be prepared and audited and an opinion can be given, the management gives a letter that all the information that we are giving to you is representing the true and fair view as per our understanding. That is what is called as the management representation letter. Once the audit is completed, then the auditor will give you a management letter. What is the management letter? Means based on the outcome of the audit, these are the areas where we have observations and findings which are not in line with your policies, with your procedures, with your practices, and need to be corrected. That is the management letter. So the management letter is an exception letter which gives findings, observations, and the management has to give a response to that, saying yes, in the next cycle we will correct that mistake, or we will be more careful. Now, this management letter is also equally important for the non-finance people, because it gives certain observations in terms of the actions that you have done which are not in line with policy and procedure. तो क्या आपको policy and procedure के बारे में पता होना चाहिए? आपके internal होना चाहिए, because otherwise there will be a finding saying that this action was taken without following the policy or procedure, or you know while following the policy and procedure, whatever was the policy, they have gone overboard as far as the policy is concerned. So the management letter is an exception report or a letter which helps management to understand what are the findings of that audit. And that findings, if they are very material, can also be part of giving their opinion, whether it is giving true and fair view. All reports should give true and fair view as per the auditor. If they give any observations which are findings which are giving wrong feedback to the external world that it is not true and fair view, then you are in trouble. That is what I want to just tell you. So the management letter is very important. Uh, Now I have one section before we can just go quickly to the to seeing a balance sheet for that matter. अभी हमने क्या देखा है अभी तक? फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स के लिए, फाइनेंशियल रिपोर्ट्स रिपोर्टिंग के लिए, which is the financial statement, there has to be a framework. We had seen the reasons, we had seen what are the components of a financial reporting framework, and we came to the fact that financial statements have three parts. Okay, and what are those three parts? And we have seen the various terms relating to those three parts, which is the balance sheet, NINE, that are primary statements, and the receipt and payment statement. And what all they show, what all they show. So on an actual balance sheet, financial statement, we will see that. And we had seen what is our role when the audit has to be done. Very small, but we will see more when we do the session on audit and assurance. Again, very simply. Now, please remember that prior to 2022, there were no standard books of accounts that NGOs had to maintain. Just like still the financial statement standardization is not there for not for profit. For profit, very standard. The Companies Act says ऐसे books और financial statement books रखनी है और ऐसे financial statement present करने हैं और सबको ऐसे करने हैं. And if you don't do, there are penalties. But at least as far as maintaining books of records accounts is concerned, there is standardization that has been brought in from financial year 21-22. Please remember this. I want you to also understand that. So there are books of accounts that have to be maintained. That is your cash book, your ledger, your journal, your copies of your invoices. इसका मतलब जब आप एक्सपेंडिचर इनकर करते हैं, जब आप ट्रैवल कराते हैं, जब आप कोई भी प्रोक्योरमेंट करते हैं, there has to be supporting documents and it has to go either from the cash or from journal, and ledgers have to be created. Now the ABC, that is the cash book, the ledger and the journal is finance function. I'm not getting into that. The difference between a cash book and journal is the same difference between cash basis and accrual basis. अगर accrual करेंगे तो आप उसको एक्सपेंडिचर को पहले रिकॉर्ड करेंगे और आप जब पे करेंगे तो कैश बेसिस पे पे करेंगे, तो दो ट्रांजैक्शंस होंगे. द जर्नल only helps for accruing that so that the liability is captured and then the payment has to be. But the copies of invoices, the copies of supporting logbooks, all that is your responsibility. Then there are books of the other documents that have to be maintained. अगर आप देखोगे आपका प्रोजेक्ट क्या है उसका रिकॉर्ड्स आपको रखना है, कितना इनकम हुआ उसका रिकॉर्ड, एक्सपेंडिचर हुआ, अगर आपका सरप्लस हुआ था पिछले सालों का उसको स्पेंड किया है, अगर आपने कोई पर्सन जो कि फाउंडर्स हैं उनको पेमेंट किया है तो दोज आर कॉल्ड स्पेसिफाइड पर्सन. What are the records of movable and immovable property? All those things. Standardization has now been brought in terms of those other records, is what I'm just trying to say. What is the form of those records? They can be digital, they can be paper, they can be, or even also on tape. They can be, you can have them on in any such fashion that is being permitted. Where do you need to keep the books of account? You need to keep the books of account at your registered office. And if you keep them at other locations other than your registered office, then you have to intimate the income tax authority that you are keeping it at any other location, your field locations. That intimation has to give. But now the government has mandated that the books of account should be maintained at the registered office. For how many years you have to maintain your books of accounts? You have to maintain your books of accounts for a period of 11 years, including the year in which it was spent. So 10 assessment years beyond the year. So if you have spent, for instance, money in 25-26, that is the current year, then this year plus 10 more years is the accounting records that have to be maintained as per law. Please, this is something that you people should also know. कहाँ पे रखा जा सकता है, किस तरह के रिकॉर्ड्स रखे जा सकते हैं, कितने पीरियड के लिए रखना है, किस फॉर्म में रखना है, समथिंग दैट ऑल ऑफ यू मस्ट आल्सो नो. ओके, नाउ लास्ट पॉइंट इज अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स. अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स मतलब अब ये जो हमने बात करी थी ना, वी आर कमिंग बैक टू द पॉइंट, वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द जनरली accepted accounting principles. Now those principles are there, those policies are there, but how will we have make those policies? Those policies will be based on some standards that we will have to follow. Those standards become the policy. And who makes those standards? Those standards are made by the institute. So how will we recognize what will be our policy on fixed asset? What will be our policy on income? what will be our policy on grant, what will be our policy on expenditure. All for all that, there are standards, and you have to make your policy based on those standards that have been formulated by the Institute of Chartered Accountants. Okay, I'm not getting into these, like for instance, AS10 tells you accounting for fixed assets. So when you have balance sheet के अंदर fixed assets on the asset side, okay, you know that the assets are on the asset side of our balance sheet. We have seen asset, liability, and net worth. So net worth and your liability will be up, and your assets will be down. So when we have to record fixed assets, what is the policy for fixed asset is based on accounting standard number 10, for instance. That is what I am trying to say. Now, let us see a sample of an audited financial statement. So I'm all right. So I'm sharing with you just one sample of a फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट. वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. अभी तक क्या समझा है हमने? हमने ये समझा है कि हमारा जो डॉक्यूमेंट है विच स्पीक्स टू द आउटसाइड वर्ल्ड अबाउट आवर फाइनेंशियल हेल्थ एंड पोजीशन and our performance is the audited financial statement. Now, this audited financial statement is not something that you are making, but you are understanding, and with that understanding, you are able to explain to the outside world. Okay, this is what is important to know. And we had seen that the balance, that an audited financial statement has several elements which it should. Hello?
Sir, your voice is very slow. Can you just rejoin to the meeting? I think
Is it
the
better now?
yeah. It is better.
Okay. All right. So what I'm actually saying is that uh, now we I'm trying to relate, I'm trying to create that story, and that story should not be lost. Now that story we are seeing on paper as a sample, as a sample. So the story is that we have to talk about our financial position, that is our assets, our liabilities, our state of health. And if we have to talk about our performance, which is our income and expenditure, ये तो हमको बात करनी है. And that is what is our talking to the outside world. And the outside world is interested only in that. Is the outside world interested in how much is my salary and how much is my travel cost from here to Delhi? No, they are not interested. They are interested in seeing the top level summary report. And this summary report is what we are now going to see. So we had seen the elements, that is income, expenditure, uh, asset, liability, and we had seen the balance sheet showing the asset and liability, and the income and expenditure showing the income statement and showing the income and expenditure. And we had seen the cash basis, which is the receipts and payments. And the basis on which we had prepared this are our accounting policies, and those accounting policies are followed based on the accounting standards that have been formulated by the institute for each area of those elements. When it comes to asset, तो हमको asset के अंदर fixed asset को कैसे की क्या पॉलिसी होगी, उसका स्टैंडर्ड है. हमारे इन्वेस्टमेंट की क्या पॉलिसी होगी, हमारे रिसीवेबल्स का क्या पॉलिसी होगी, हमारी बैंक की क्या पॉलिसी होगी, हमारी लाइबिलिटी को रिकॉग्नाइज करने की क्या पॉलिसी होगी. For liability recognition, there is a standard, and we will have to follow that standard to make our policy, and that policy we will have to consistently follow. So understood, that's how the statement is prepared. That you have to understand. Now, I'm now coming to the balance sheet, and on the top you can see the auditor's report. It's called the independent auditor's report. So we had seen that financial reporting ke andar, the financial report, whether it gives the true and fair view, is something that an independent person is verifying and confirming. That's the auditor. Okay. And this is his report. And this guy is a chartered accountant, whatever XYZ. And this person has been accredited or confirmed by the institute to do this kind of a work. So this organization, they are now giving it to the who are the owners of this organization? The general body is the owner. That is the members of this organization. Okay. Or if it's a society, or if it's a trust, the trustees, whatever. If it's a company, to the members, again to the shareholder. Now it says report of the audit of the financial statements. Audit किसका है? Financial statements का. जब audit financial statements का हो जाता है तो वो बन जाते हैं audited financial statements. Okay. And we had seen what are the financial statements? We had seen balance sheet, IND, RNP. That's all. For the year ended on 31st March. Okay. I've just taken that. Then they say this is our opinion. Why? Because the auditors, after doing the audit, after doing the MRL, the ML, they have to give an opinion. Basis for our opinion. सबसे important जब opinion दे रहे हैं वो क्या बोल रहा है? In our opinion and to the best of the information, okay, and according to the explanations given to us, that is the MRL, the management representative, the aforesaid financial statements read with other points give a true and fair view, okay, conforming with the accounting principles generally accepted in India. हमने बात की ना GAAP, दैट इज व्हाट दे आर सेइंग, दीज आर द जनरली एक्सेप्टेड अकाउंटिंग प्रिंसिपल्स। और उसके बेसिस पे जब हमने इसका इस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का असेसमेंट किया, ऑडिट किया, देन फॉर द थ्री स्टेटमेंट्स, फॉर द थ्री फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स, it gives a fair and true, these statements give a true and fair view of the finance of this organization. What are the three? Case of balance sheet of the state of affairs of the society as at मतलब एक particular point of time पे, for the year मतलब for a period, that is income and expenditure statement, and the receipt and payment again for a period for the year. So the IND and uh, uh, RNP show the performance for a period, and the balance sheet shows the position as at a date. So remember that again and again. I'm telling you. Uh, Responsibility of management, that's as per the responsibility, auditor's responsibility, and finally it is signed off. Okay, the report to other legal related to other legal, and this fellow has now signed it off and said it reports gives a true and fair position. This is his membership number, and he's signed off, and this is the report. It is to be filed with the UDIN portal, which is the portal where does it just happen to be with you? No, this report is filed with the ICAI on their UDIN portal, and a number is generated, which you can see, which means that this report is now with the Institute of Chartered Accountant as a formal document. It's not that it can be changed, and it can be changed, but any change will have another UDIN. So that is the sanctity, okay, of this. Now coming to what is the balance sheet. हम balance sheet बात कर रहे थे, क्या दिखाता है? First is the liabilities, corpus, capital fund, and liabilities, and the other part is the asset. Okay, as at a particular point of time. Now, what it does is, so we have seen liability, asset, and the difference between asset and liability is our net asset. Now, in this case, for instance, the corpus fund is a liability. पर ये corpus fund कहाँ पर represented है? Investment के अंदर, investment of corpus fund. If you see schedule H, if you see the one marked schedule H, this is the place where the corpus that is shown as a liability. Why? Because corpus हमारा पैसा नहीं है. Corpus is a liability. But the corpus is represented on the asset side, which means we have not consumed it. It is represented here. What was this investment of corpus fund, which is invested in fixed deposits or wherever? It is going to lead to income getting generated. And where will the income be represented? In the income and expenditure statement. We had said that the corpus can be replenishable. Replenishable means that there may be a requirement that you will have to add to the corpus. Okay, so here you will find that while the corpus amount in the liability side is an X amount, the investment in the on the asset side is X plus one, because there is a replenishment requirement that out of the income that you are earning, something more you have to deposit, and that is what is actually creating that buffer, improving that buffer. Then you have, endowment fund is a restricted fund. We had seen that, okay, when we are seeing restricted fund, and we had seen endowment restricted fund can be temporarily restricted and permanently restricted. Grant unspent balance. Where are you seeing grant unspent? Grant unspent is not income. This is the money that you have not spent. When you will spend it next year, then it will become income. Till that time, it will be a liability, because we have said grant is trust money. It is not our money. Similarly, fixed asset fund, where you purchase some capital assets or fixed assets, which are to be represented as capital and not to be represented in the income and expenditure, is where it is. Reserves and surplus. This is your general fund. So this is your general fund, means that this is the money on which there is no restriction. You can spend it as you like. The last one is current liabilities and provision. Whatever is at this particular point of time not paid but has to be paid is what is coming. Any liabilities that are provision for gratuity, for leaves, whatever, this is what it is. On the asset side, now ये liability तो हो गई. Asset side में हमारे पास क्या है? इस particular इन ये जो ग्रांट्स आई उससे हमने फिक्स्ड एसेट खरीदे. सो दैट इज व्हाट इज आवर एसेट्स. ओके. सेकंड इज इन्वेस्टमेंट. ओके. वॉट एवर इन्वेस्टमेंट्स वी हैव डन. Non current assets, current assets. Okay, so basically the current assets are in three types. uh, Non current assets means they are more than 1 year. Grant receivable, if any grant is to be received, that is a receivable, it's a current asset, because the expenditure has been made but we have not received it. तो जब हम एक्सपेंडिचर कर देते हैं किसी ग्रांट पे इन एंटीसिपेशन बट इट इज नॉट रिसीव्ड, वो असेट है हमारा. जब हम पैसा मिल जाता है लेकिन हमने उसको स्पेंड नहीं किया, तो वो हमारी लाइबिलिटी है. दैट इज हाउ इट इज. कैश, बैंक एंड अदर करंट एसेट्स. ओके, सो दैट इज समथिंग that we know that these are our current assets. This is again signed off. Now come to the income and expenditure. This is on accrual basis. All that we have been able to earn. Now, what is it? What is the income side? Basically, it says, you know, basically it says donate grants and donations. Grants and donations. So what are the grants and donations? That is our bread and butter. That is what we got. We got any overhead recovery, which means that this was something that was given to us as management cost or indirect cost, or other income, interest income, rental income, whatever are our expenditure. Now, if you see the expenditure here, this is based on functional head of expenditure, not on natural head. Are you seeing salary? Are you seeing travel? No, because that is not what we are meant for. What are we meant for? We are meant for program service delivery. इसलिए हमारा एक्सपेंडिचर तीन हेड्स के अंदर दिख रहा है. ऑल्दो वी आर कैप्चरिंग सैलरी एंड एवरीथिंग, बट एट द एंड ऑफ द डे our expenditure is for program expenses. Our expenditure is on support or establishment expenses. It is on other administrative expenditure, and it is also on depreciation. Okay, so that is the kind of money that is being spent. It is on the functional basis. Now, whatever is the surplus that we get, for instance, here you are seeing what is surplus during the year. You may have a minus also. So, since there is no bracket here, it is not minus, it's a plus. This amount of money will go to your balance sheet. So, what happens is surplus during the year, ये जो amount आपको दिख रहा है 108 वाला amount, this will go upstairs to the balance sheet, and it will go to this particular place, reserves and surplus, and it will get added there, because this is the money that you can now use for any particular purposes. There is no restriction on this money. ठीक है, समझ गए? Now you have the receipt and payment, which says what is the actual money received. Actual receipt, बैंक में क्या आया और क्या बैंक से गया या कैश से क्या गया. That is what the actual receipt and payments are. Now, the receipt and payment actually helps us track what has come and what has gone. There should be a relationship between income and expenditure and the and RNP, and numbers should not be very different, because if the numbers are very different, then it might show a situation of stress. So these are the various schedules. Okay, I'm not going to go to the schedules. This is a fixed asset schedule. आपने कब खरीदा, कितना depreciation charge हुआ, and what is the value as of now. So all these items that we have seen on the balance sheet and income and expenditure, now they are getting detailed in terms of schedules. You may not have to look at the schedule, but you have to be very careful about what is the balance sheet and the IND saying. Okay. Then you come to what is called as the accounting policies and principles. Okay. Now this is what it is. The This is the schedule on accounting policies. इसका मतलब हमने हमारी policies, corpus fund की हमारी policy क्या है. Okay, this is what it has been mentioned here. How this, what is the basis of our preparation? How have you grants in aid, how have they been recognized? Okay, whether they have been recognized as liability, unutilized to the extent of liability. How is our interest income recognition? How is our fixed asset recognized? Again, I had told you, we in the presentation we had seen the fixed assets are recognized based on a certain policy. Tangible assets, intangible assets को हमने कैसे recognize किया है is based on the accounting standard number 10. How have we recognized depreciation? That's on the basis of the accounting standard on depreciation. Now this policy we will follow year on year, and therefore our numbers will be consistent year on year. Similarly, investment. Have we followed the investment policies? What about our employee benefit? Have we followed the employee benefit policies and standards? What is our policy and what standards we have followed? All those provisions that we have made for gratuity, provision that we have made for any contingent liability, any taxes, but since we are a not-for-profit section 11 and 12 entity, therefore there are no taxes because we are exempt from taxes. These are notes which explain the figures that are there. That is what is the kind of a sample uh, uh, audited financial statement that I wanted to just show to you. This is how it completes. But for you, what is important is the audited financial statement. Basically, the two statements that will talk about your financial position. This, the balance sheet, which tells kitna what you own and what you owe, and what after you have paid what you owe out of own, is there anything left? Okay, not for distribution, but for objectives, and the income and expenditure statement. These are the two key parts of financial statements, of your audited financial statements, that you should be aware of. So, with that, I have completed the session. In this session, we have tried to understand that what are the various financial statements at the top level about which we as program persons should know. You must go through this again. I can now take on questions. All right. So the first question is on query whether FCRA Act prohibits accumulation of corpus funds. If yes, please send us the. Let me just explain this to you, Ram Avtar. Please remember that foreign contribution, by the nature of the act, says that foreign contribution has to be for a specified defined purpose. The purpose has been defined in the FCRA, which says it can be either for cultural, religious, social, economic, or educational purpose. Please remember the word purpose. Corpus fund is not purpose driven, because we had said there is no restriction on purpose and timing. So as per FCRA, as per the strict interpretation of FCRA and their auditors when they are going for audit, they are saying corpus fund cannot be created under FCRA. That's the simple relevant document that I can see. The basis of FCRA is a defined purpose or a project. It is not for purpose of generating income. Up to now, corpus is recognized in law, as I told you when we were talking. Corpus is recognized under the income tax law, but when it comes to the FCRA law, holding corpus is not allowed. With the result that many organizations after audit are being asked to uh, liquidate their corpus for the objective of the organization. So I think that is what I want to just tell you. I understand we will see this when we do the overview of the statutory regulations in session number 5. In session number 5, I understand that we can set aside 15% every year. We do even a small amount from services we provide apart from uh, and build reserves from it. We providing services, revenue generation, 100% in that. I think I've already answered this to Morris Foundation, Tanima. I have already answered it in details. Please remember that whatever, if education is your primary purpose and if you are generating some revenue, that revenue is for your purpose. Okay, that is not additional. That is your purpose revenue in addition to the grants that you get. You are there for a purpose, and if education is your purpose and you are charging something, that is for your charitable purpose including your grants, and you have to spend 85% out of that. 15% can be is specified amounts that can be uh, set aside out of the grants, donations, and the income that you have generated from your object, only from your object. Okay. So if you have an education institution and if you're taking some fees, small fees, that is your income through the object. It is not extra revenue. Don't call it revenue. That is your income from charitable object. Grant is also income for the charitable object. But if as an educational institution you were running, say a mess, you were running a bus, you were running a library, and or you were running a hostel, those are not educational things. Those are business incidental to your object, and that will have to be reported separately. Okay. So as far as your primary object for which you are generating any revenue is concerned, that is your charitable object. We will see that more in the section on statutory regulation, where I'll talk to you about section 11 and understanding the 15 and 85%. Educational institutions or training centers spend their most in personnel cost, especially on teachers and trainers, that can consider as a program cost or not. Where under FCRA you're saying now? So under FCRA, uh, the point relates to admin cost. Okay, so the admin cost, you have two provisos in Rule 5 of the FCRA rules, FC rules, which says that if you are an educational institution and if the money is being paid to the teachers who are directly benefiting the beneficiaries or the students, then that cost will be considered as will not be considered as admin cost. So please refer to the two provisos. Just write down two provisos, and I will show that to you in the FCRA bit, a little bit in the session number 5. The two provisos to Rule 5, which defines admin cost, and there the payment made to teachers who are directly benefiting the beneficiaries is not a admin cost. What is overhead? Overhead is in addition to your direct cost and shared cost. So it's not mandatory that the organization that the donor will give. Some donors just give you the direct and shared cost. They might not give you any overhead cost. Overhead cost is in addition some resources that are available for your future. Because otherwise, if you have direct cost and only common cost being covered, then if there is a contingency, if something has to be done, if something some emergency happens, then how do you do that? That is what is called as overhead. So all donors do not give overhead is what I'm trying to say. First thing. Second thing, I want to just say that okay, so that's what I'm saying. So it's not necessary that you will be paid the overhead. It'll all depend on how the contract has been set up. Now there's another question which says, what is overhead cost in budgets? What is overhead cost is something that we have seen. Even overhead costs also to be spent on a particular project, not necessary. It can be spent for anything because the donors generally do not ask about utilization of overhead cost. It's a certain percentage of your total direct and common cost. Is it possible to mm, do a variance report every month? Yes, you can. Ideal, there's no ideal date. It should be done once your books have been closed. Ideally, those dates are about 3rd to 5th of a month. So once the books have been closed, the account books have been closed, the variance report. Please remember the variance report can be generated from Tally. So tell your finance folks that the budget should be set up in Tally and the actuals should will get captured in Tally and the variance reports will be a matter of time. In fact, it can be real time also. At any point of time also, you can get that report up to the time that you have inputted your expenditure. How is to understand the difference between overcast and administrative cost? These are all words that are used. It will all depend on what the donor is comfortable with because they are not defined. Administrative cost, if you are so this administrative cost is a word which is used in FCRA more specifically. Those are support costs. Okay. When it comes to administrative cost in a budget, the administrative cost is the overhead cost, which does not require explanation and is a certain percentage. So you'll have to understand it based on what is the context, because there is no standard definition. Grant payments are typically tied to specific milestones and deliverables. However, if we don't fully achieve a particular milestone, we'll still face ongoing fixed costs like salaries and rent. This is performance-based budgeting. So performance-based budgeting are specifically milestone-based budgeting and deliverable-based budgeting. So in that case, you will get money if you have done the milestone. Only to that extent you will get the money. The rest of the money you will not get, or you will get money based on how much percentage milestone you have done. And these are typically CSR projects. So you have to be very careful that uh, you are meeting your deliverables so that the entire cost is coming to you. Otherwise, part of the budget will not come to you and you might have to pay it from your pocket. This is what I can say. So what I'm saying is efficiency in terms of deliverables is the critical answer to this question. Is accounting policies or notes to accounts? It is 100% mandatory, but many of the organizations don't, attach this as a schedule. Accounting policies and notes to accounts should be a schedule because that only explains how the accounts have been formulated. 8, 7, or 5 to 7 balance sheets out of 10 do not have these accounting policies, but it is a mandatory requirement. And why? Because this only explains how the accounts have been formulated. But the auditors take you for granted, take you for a ride because they don't want to do this, and you have no idea whether to ask for that or not. Please explain the audit report in form number 10B. So this means that there are other than program people, and if there's a program person asking for 10B, I am very glad. So 10B is the audit report that has to be issued by the auditor. No, this report that we saw, the financial statement, is not the audit report. Okay, this is not the 10B report. This is the audit report. But from the point of view, so this is the financial statement or the financial audited financial report. So don't confuse this. This is your report card. Now the report card has to be submitted in terms of compliances to various authorities. Now one of the authorities, as I say, is the income tax authority. Now they don't understand the financial reports just like this financial report that we had seen, report card. They want this report card to be reported in their own format, which is the 10B audit report format, in which these data will go, same data as in the audited financial statements will go, but in a different fashion in the way they want the presentation. And this 10B has to be submitted annually by the 30th of September by the auditor. However, you have to sign it. The, this is the 10B that I am referring to. Somebody is asking me a question on tax on subgrant. Where is so if it's a sub-grant, where is the tax implication? A grant and a sub-grant. So the prime grant and the sub-grant are only a transfer of the grant. There should be no taxation. If there is a tax component, then it is a service contract. We had seen that differentiation between a grant, a sub-grant, and a vendor contract. Please go to that slide. Sub-grant will not have a tax implication. A vendor contract or a service contract will have a tax implication. If it has a service contract or a tax implication, it will come out of the definition of subgrant. All right. Any more questions that you have? Any questions that you still have? A lot of these questions, are also forward questions, meaning that when we will do session number 5, a lot of clarity will come and you will really enjoy that clarity. Next week, we will do procurement of goods and services, which is one of your main work. Uh, I hope you have understood. So what is he saying? 2 years back, government has passed the notice to tax on subgrant. I don't know what this is. We will do that. I don't understand what is subgrant taxation. So I don't understand this and what is the relaxation. Is he talking about subgranting 85% subgranting as application? That is a different thing. So if you're talking of, okay, she says yes. All right, hang on. So session number 5, I'm going to take you. So when there is a direct implementation is what, please understand what he's saying is that if the application is by way of subgrant, then only 85% is allowed as application. What happens to the 15%? Do we have to accumulate? Although we have already given that 15% also. I'll explain that to you in session 5. Hang on. Okay. Okay, I get it. That relaxation also I'll explain to you. Good, good, very nice. All right. If there's nothing else, Indranil, you can do the honors, and I'll see them next.
Sure,
Uh,
sure, sir. So thank you everyone. Thank you, Sharad sir, for this wonderful session. There were a lot of questions, and you have answered all whichever are there in the chat box. So if anyone will have any more question, then you can directly email us your queries. And the queries can be clubbed from all the 3 sessions that we have conducted now. So next week at Saturday, we are meeting at 11 o'clock on 28th June. Thank you very much.
All
Bye.
right. Thank you.